Clutching her coffee cup tightly, the familiar scent of fresh brew filled her senses, mixing with the excitement swirling in her chest. Today was a big day. It was the annual meeting where big plans and promotions would be announced. Maya couldn't help but feel a little anxious. She wore her favorite blue dress, the one that always made her feel a bit more confident. But as she moved deeper into the lobby, her eyes fell upon a man standing by the reception desk. He was tall but clumsy. His shoes were old, scuffed, and too big for him. Something about him made her snicker a little. She shook her head, pushing the thought away. Who cared about shoes anyway? Clearly, she wasn't the best judge of a person by their appearance. Her witty comment danced at the edge of her mind as she moved toward the elevator. Her thoughts were somewhere between the meeting and the potential promotion. After months of hard work, she was eager for a reward. And in her mind, a promotion was a ticket to a brighter future, a chance to escape the shadows of the past. The elevator dinged, and Maya stepped inside, still chuckling about that guy's shoes. Just as the doors were closing, the man with the bizarre shoes rushed in, barely making it. He glanced at her with a shy smile, his eyes darting to the floor. Maya tried to suppress her laughter. Was that even his first day? He fidgeted as the elevator climbed, reaching the 12th floor. The tension thickened. Maya could feel a mix of nerves and excitement build inside her. She reminded herself of her goals, pushing aside the odd interaction with the man in the dorky shoes. As the door slid open, a wave of chatter and clinking glasses washed over them. They stepped into the bustling environment of the meeting room. It was alive, filled with important people, all dressed to the nines. Maya spotted her boss, Mr. Jacobs, who always seemed to command the room with his booming voice and charismatic presence. He was in the center of attention, laughing and making jokes. Suddenly, a ping in her pocket distracted her. It was a message from her team. "You got this." It infused her with strength. She took a deep breath and walked toward Mr. Jacobs. As Maya approached, she saw the man with the shoes out of the corner of her eye. He was awkwardly standing against the wall, trying not to draw attention to himself. She felt a pang of sympathy for him. Was he genuinely shy, or just the type of guy who never got a break? Then it happened. In the midst of their chatter, Mr. Jacobs reached down and grabbed something from under the table, a sleek black suitcase. It looked out of place in this room filled with laughter and clinking glasses. But what puzzled Maya was how he seemed to avoid eye contact with the man with the shoes, almost like he couldn't see him at all. Curiosity sparked in her. She leaned closer, trying to catch snippets of conversation. "It's all arranged. The plan is foolproof," Mr. Jacobs said, his voice thick with confidence. Maya's heart raced. What was he talking about? Before she could ask, the man with the shoes awkwardly shuffled closer, as if drawn by some invisible thread. "Excuse me, sir," he mumbled, his voice almost a whisper. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Mr. Jacobs' laughter faded instantly. He turned, the look on his face shifting from amusement to annoyance. "What this?" He hesitated, glancing around the room like a deer caught in headlights. The tension snapped at that moment. "I just need to know," the man pressed, determination filling his voice. Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. This was no ordinary encounter. The room fell silent, everyone staring at them. The man's voice quivered, but there was bravery in it. She wanted to yell to tell him to step back, but then she felt a sense of connection. Here was a man unafraid to confront what he knew, even in this grand room filled with powerful people. Mr. Jacobs demanded, the edge in his voice clear as day. Maya could see the uncertainty flicker in Mr. Jacobs' eyes. He straightened himself, trying to reassert his power with words. But the man hadn't faltered. "I know I left my documents in that suitcase." His voice gained strength, and Maya could feel the unfairness of the situation tightening around her heart. Of course, the suitcase looked important. It was all black and pristine, unlike the man who seemed to have been cast away by fate. Contrast pierced her in that moment. Was Mr. Jacobs really one to be trusted? Maya's gut twisted. She interjected, surprising herself. The words fell from her mouth before she could stop them. Everyone turned to her. The man nodded, his shoulders rising just a bit under the weight of her encouragement. "Yes, I'm just trying to. I just need." Mr. Jacobs' face flushed with irritation. This is not the time for this. His authority fizzled like a soda that had been shaken too hard. But the man stood tall. The room was silent for a moment. The heaviness in the air was palpable. Maya could see Mr. Jacobs' jaw tighten as he grappled with a sudden loss of control. There was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, almost as if the polished surface was starting to crack. Maya felt a rush of courage. "No, he's right," she said, standing her ground, her heart racing but her voice steady. Mr. Jacobs' face twisted in anger, but he was losing ground. The murmur of the crowd began to rise. Cheers of support emerged, startling Maya. People were standing behind the man with the shoes, lending their voices to his cause. The tide was turning. "You don't have to be afraid," she urged him softly. For a moment, the man's eyes widened, hope igniting in his chest. He glanced around the room and saw more than just a crowd. He saw allies. As if the room itself was bending, Mr. Jacobs weighed the options in his mind. He could feel the shift of power dissolve beneath him. Finally, he sneered, "Fine." The man approached the suitcase, trembling but determined. His fingers fumbled a bit, but he managed to unclip the locks. With a weighted breath, he swung the suitcase open. What lay inside was a stash of documents, files, and a small, neatly wrapped package. The crowd gasped, but Maya felt a strong sense of relief. The documents clearly bore the man's name, but the small package caught her eye. Curiosity gnawed at her. She looked over at Mr. Jacobs, his face twisted in disdain. He barked, his previous confidence shattered. The man paused, his fingers tracing the package. It was something I was working on, a project. Maya stepped closer, drawn by his sincerity. You were going to present something important. She said, almost breathless. It could change the whole department, he admitted quietly, holding the package tightly. The weight of unspoken dreams tangled in the air, filling the room with a mix of desperation and hope. Mr. Jacobs scoffed. And you think that benchwarming all these years gave you the chance to change anything? A collective gasp filled the room, and Maya felt her heart drop. The man stood taller. No, thank you. The tension had reached its peak. Maya's heart raced as people began to mumble their agreement with the man. Someone shouted from the back. Others shared smiles, nodding in support. Seeing the crowd rallying around the man made something shift within her. The power dynamics were being tested, and Mr. Jacobs was on shaky ground. The walls of his polished facade were crumbling, revealing something much more fragile beneath. Mr. Jacobs shouted, trying to reclaim the room, but there was no use. The moment had transformed into something monumental. Maya felt a wave of clarity wash over her. She wanted to help them see the truth, the courage radiating from this man who had fought for his dreams even when others laughed. You believe in this, she said, her voice steady. Share it. In that moment, the man looked at her, and something passed between them that reached far beyond words. Hope flickered like a candle, lighting her heart. Mr. Jacobs was losing control, and there was no way to cap the rising tide. With newfound strength, the man opened the package. It contained blueprints and ideas, outlines that shimmered with potential. People leaned in closer, the room buzzing with excitement. I can't believe it, someone called out. Mr. Jacobs' face turned crimson, his authority evaporating in the heat of the moment. The crowd surged forward, eager to engage with the man and his vision. Maya watched as the old shoes of the man transitioned from mockery to a badge of honor. He was no longer just a figure in the corner, he was a beacon of hope, his ideas igniting a fire in everyone's hearts. In that moment, something shifted in Maya. She realized change was possible, no matter how out of place someone felt or how much they were laughed at. All it took was one brave heart to confront the norm. As Mr. Jacobs retreated, the sound of celebration filled the air, overshadowing the awkward events of the morning. Maya took a deep breath, a smile breaking through her worries. Together, they were creating something new. There it was, a heavy suitcase in the middle of the busy office lobby. Someone had just abandoned it as if it were too heavy to carry, or perhaps too loaded with secrets to move. Maya, holding her coffee cup, glanced over it, intrigued yet dismissive. It looked too formal for this casual Friday. It was a deep black with shiny metal corners that caught the fluorescent lights overhead. But what stood out even more were the scuffed shoes of the man standing by it. They were unmistakably outdated, the kind that made people shake their heads in mockery. Maya's eyes narrowed on him, and a small chuckle escaped her lips. She quickly pressed her lips together, not wanting to seem rude, but the laughter bubbled up, lingering longer than she intended. He caught her eye, and embarrassment flooded his face. She thought, really? The man shifted awkwardly from one foot to the other, his hands trembling slightly, present in that moment of judgment. But Maya brushed the thought aside. She had bigger things to focus on. Today was the day that promotions would be announced. She had been working hard, pouring everything into her projects, and she felt confident that this could be her moment. The chatter of her colleagues filled the air, but it was all background noise, drowning out thoughts of the man and his unfortunate footwear. Maya took a deep breath and walked over to the elevator, her mind racing with possibilities. Could she finally be recognized for her contributions? What if she made the right impression on Mr. Jacobs, the boss? The elevator doors slid open, and she greeted the other passengers as they piled in. Among them was the man with the shoes, standing uncomfortably close to her. A slight tension hung between them, and Maya crossed her arms. Should she offer him a smile, a quick word of encouragement? But what could she say? It felt insincere, considering her earlier laughter. As the elevator climbed up to the top floor, the man kept his gaze fixed on the floor. Maya felt the weight of his unspoken story. She stole another glance at him. There was something about the way he stood, a quiet stubbornness in his demeanor, like he was in on a joke that no one else understood. The elevator doors opened, revealing the bustling atmosphere of the office. Associates greeted one another, laughter echoed, and glasses clinked softly in the distance as everyone prepared for the big meeting. Maya took a deep breath, the intoxicating air filled with excitement and anxiety. She found Mr. Jacobs already stationed in the center of the room like a lion surveying its territory. He had charisma that could light up a dim room, and in that moment he seemed larger than life. His tailored suit fit perfectly, every strand of his hair neatly in place. As she approached him, the nervous butterflies began to swirl in her stomach. This was her opportunity to shine. The man with the shoes loitered near the edge of the crowd, clearly an outsider. No one was paying attention to him, their faces turned toward Mr. Jacobs like flowers reaching for the sun. And yet there he stood, steadfast as rocks, clutching the handle of his suitcase with white-knuckled determination. Over the next few minutes, the crowd buzzed with anticipation, and Maya watched as Mr. Jacobs began to speak, his voice booming with authority. "Welcome, everyone. Today we are here to discuss the future of our company." A cheer erupted from the crowd, reinforcing her resolve. Maya imagined her name being called, her heart racing at the thought, but her excitement was cut short. From the corner of her eye, she saw the man sidling up to the front, an unexpected confidence radiating from him as he stepped out from the shadows. He held the suitcase tightly in both hands. "Excuse me, mister," he called out, his voice steady yet quaking. The room fell silent. Chatter was replaced by disbelief. Maya could hardly breathe as she realized that this was turning into a moment she hadn't anticipated. Mr. Jacobs turned, eyebrows arched in surprise, irritation flickering across his face. He asked, incredulity dripping from each word. The man gathered himself and stepped closer. His voice worked through the hesitation, finding strength through the doubt. Maya could see beads of sweat forming on his forehead. "Mr. Jacobs countered, crossing his arms, exuding a dismissive air that made the air thick with tension. "It's mine. It has my documents in it, important presentations. I left them here earlier," he explained, his voice firm despite the pressure of the room bearing down like a weight. For a moment, Maya felt time stop. The realization that Mr. Jacobs had ignored the man's presence earlier, along with the scuffed shoes, began to simmer in the back of her mind. It wasn't just about a suitcase or documents anymore. This was about something much deeper. She remembered the laughter that had tumbled out of her mouth earlier and felt a weight of shame in her gut. Jacobs scoffed, glaring at the man. "This is a professional environment." Just as Maya felt the air thicken with fear for the man, something inside her snapped. She stepped forward, her voice rising above the stillness. "That's not right." "Everyone deserves a chance to be heard, mister." Her words echoed through the room like notes of a haunting melody. The crowd began to murmur in agreement, the whispers buzzing like angry bees. The contrast of the man's vulnerability against Jacob's bravado was stark and emotionally gripping. This wasn't just about the suitcase, it encapsulated a world where everyone had the right to stand up to be seen. Mr. Jacobs shot her a furious look before turning back to the man. He sneered. The man hesitated, but the determination grew behind his voice. "I just need a fair chance." With a flicker of resolve, he opened the suitcase and the crowd leaned in curious. Papers spilled out, blueprints and documents flying like loose leaves caught in the wind. Some people leaned forward, intrigued by the contents, while others gasped in surprise. Maya strained to see the graphic designs, the smooth lettering, the hard work that had gone into this. It was clear this wasn't just any presentation. It was an innovative plan that could shake up the department. Excitement began to ripple through the crowd. The man said, gesturing toward the chaos of ideas before him, "This is a new approach to our marketing strategy." The crowd responded, people began nodding, some murmuring encouragement. Suddenly, the focus shifted. Mr. Jacobs, who had commanded authority just moments before, stood precariously at the edge of losing his grip. Maya felt the thrill of change in the air. Jacobs bellowed, yet there was a crack in his facade, a tremor in his voice that couldn't be hidden. He stepped forward, ready to reclaim his position, but the crowd wouldn't let him. Maya stepped closer to the man, her voice unwavering. "This is not nonsense, this is opportunity." The buzz of agreement swelled, people were rallying together. The man's scuffed shoes, once mock-worthy, became a symbol of perseverance, the suitcase not just luggage but a trove of dreams. Mr. Jacobs' face morphed from anger to confusion, then finally to realization. The tide was turning against him. The office members were no longer hanging on his every word, they craved honesty, authenticity. A voice called out from the back. Maya sensed the growing momentum. She turned to the man, who was still holding the documents, looking both relieved and emboldened. With the weight of the crowd behind them, the man began to explain his vision, his confidence growing by each word. As he spoke, Maya felt the room transform. Tension faded, replaced by something electric: hope, possibility, unity. Jacobs moved to interrupt, but the voices of the crowd drowned him out. Someone shouted. Maya's heart raced as she witnessed a revolution, a fight for inclusion and respect right before her eyes. The crowd was calling for change, rallying against the outdated notions of hierarchy and embracing the worth of everyone no matter what shoes they wore. As the man laid out his plans, Maya held her breath, hanging onto every word. The ideas flowed, drawing the crowd deeper into his vision. Creativity sparked in the air, and with each point he shared, the vision became clearer. This was the future they all wanted, the change they craved. Finally, as the man wrapped up, the applause erupted, echoing against the walls of the once stifling conference room. The sound was thunderous, unmistakably powerful. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. This was a moment she wouldn't forget. The man with the shoes, once ridiculed, rose to a place of respect and admiration. And in that moment of shared triumph, Mr. Jacobs stood in stunned silence, the weight of his authority lifting like fog under the morning sun. With hearts racing and joy filling the air, everyone gathered around the man, lifting him up. This was not just about one presentation. It was about standing together, embracing diversity, and valuing every voice that longed to be heard. As the celebration swelled around her, Maya smiled, not about the promotion she'd once dreamed of, but about the realization that change wasn't just possible, it was happening. The man with the shoes had shown the way, and now they were all part of a story that would resonate far beyond that room. Each voice mattered, each story awaited its chance to be told, and Maya felt proud to share the journey with those brave enough to rise up. A loud thud echoed through the office lobby as a suitcase hit the ground. It landed with an authority that made everyone freeze for a moment. Maya, clutching her coffee cup, turned her head, her curiosity peaked. What kind of a person would just drop a suitcase like that? Then she noticed the man standing next to it. His shoes were worn down and looked like he dragged them through a muddy field. She couldn't help herself. A laugh escaped her lips, an involuntary reaction to the sight. She whispered to her colleague, just loud enough for him to hear, but quiet enough that no one else could catch her comment. The man, caught off guard, glanced up at her, embarrassment washing over his face. He was clearly out of place. Maya immediately felt a pang of guilt, but quickly shook it off. She had bigger things to focus on today. Today was all about her, promotion day. She was ready to shine. As she sipped her coffee, she surreptitiously watched the man. He stood by his suitcase, hands tucked awkwardly in his pockets. Did he even belong here, she wondered. The office was abuzz with excitement, the scent of fresh pastries wafting through the air as colleagues mingled, reviewing their notes, preparing for the big announcements. Maya took a deep breath. It was her moment to step into the spotlight. Around her, the chatter grew lively, and she felt her heart race in anticipation. Mr. Jacobs, their boss, had a reputation for making the day unforgettable. With the sun streaming through the tall glass windows, she spotted Mr. Jacobs, his presence magnetic as always. Standing in the center of the room, he exuded confidence. His crisp suit, perfectly styled hair, and booming voice drew everyone in as he recounted the accomplishments of the year. As he spoke, Maya's heart pounded with hope. She could see herself walking into his office, her name spoken with pride. But then she caught sight of the man again, standing with his suitcase, looking lost as Mr. Jacobs wove tales of success. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Here was an ambitious leader in a tailored suit, and there was the man with shoddy shoes and a suitcase clutched like it held the weight of the world. Just when Maya thought nothing else could pull her attention away from her dreams, the unexpected happened. The man stepped forward, his voice shaky but determined. "Excuse me, mister," he called out, the room falling silent in an instant. Every head turned in shock. Mr. Jacobs, taken aback, narrowed his eyes. He retorted, a hint of irritation creeping into his tone. The tension thickened, and Maya felt it wrap around her like a tight sweater. "I think this suitcase belongs to me," the man continued, stepping a little closer. "I left it here yesterday." His voice trembled, but the strength in his words amazed her. Maya's heart raced. The man didn't just want to reclaim an item, he was fighting for something significant. This moment was evolving into a struggle for dignity in front of a room full of people who were all too aware of their surroundings. Mr. Jacobs scoffed, his arrogance bubbling to the surface. The contempt in his voice was palpable, and Maya could see the man shrink under the pressure, but something ignited within her, an urge to defend the underdog. She suddenly shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. "Everyone deserves a chance to explain themselves, Mr. Jacobs." All eyes shifted to her. Maya felt the weight of their stares. The mix of support and disbelief gave her strength. The man stood there, his expression a blend of gratitude and surprise. Maybe he hadn't expected someone to speak up for him. She pressed on, feeling emboldened. This could be an important moment. Mr. Jacobs' expression faltered for a moment. The crowd began to murmur, a collective energy rising in support of her words. "See what's inside," someone from the back called out, their voice simple yet loud enough. The room bristled with curiosity, and Maya felt a charge of determination. This could be pivotal. "Fine," Jacobs snapped, trying to maintain his composure. His arrogance wavered like a thread about to snap. The man took a deep breath, unzipping the suitcase with shaky fingers. It flapped open, revealing organized folders full of documents and diagrams. The murmurs grew softer, anticipation filling the air. Mr. Jacobs asked, the animosity in his tone shifting to a begrudging curiosity. "It's my proposal," the man managed, his voice gaining strength, "for a new marketing strategy that could elevate our brand image. I figured out a new approach to connect better with our customers." The crowd leaned in, eyes widening. The designs were sleek, innovative. Maya's heart raced as she saw something special, the fingerprints of someone who had fought hard for their vision. "This is incredible," someone murmured near the front. Maya could see heads nodding. A voice chimed in, filled with excitement. Feeling emboldened by the crowd's reaction, the man continued. "I know I may seem out of place, but I have been working on this for months." There was something raw and captivating about his sincerity. Maya glanced at Mr. Jacobs, and for a second she could see the chinks in his armor. He was losing control of the narrative. Mr. Jacobs shot back, glaring at the man as if he were essential to assert his dwindling power. Maya declared, her pulse quickening. The crowd echoed her sentiments, lending their support like sparkles igniting a fire. Among the growing chorus of agreement, Maya could see the man becoming more assured. He looked around the room, the tension dissipating. I've been an intern, I've shadowed clients, I know what people want, I know where our market needs to go, he explained, voice firm. Mr. Jacobs shifted, his glare faltering as the crowd's enthusiasm for the man's proposal deepened. He barked, trying to regain authority, but it was a vain struggle against the swell of the crowd. The man straightened. Maybe it's time to change how we do things, he replied, courage radiating from him like never before. Maya watched as the papers crinkled in the suitcase, the designs drawing more attention. Everything in the office had seemed so rigid, so predictable, but here was the winds of change blowing through, transforming the room into something electrifying. A voice called out, cutting through the tension. We want this idea. The energy in the room shifted dramatically. It became palpable, everyone caught up in the overwhelming wave of support. The man stood taller, beaming in the spotlight he'd unexpectedly claimed. It was no longer just about his suitcase. It morphed into something grander, a struggle against the status quo, an embodiment of fresh ideas boldly demanding space at the table. Panic flickered across Mr. Jacobs' face as he struggled to rally the power he had wielded so effortlessly moments before. He shouted, but the voices had found strength. Let's see what he has to offer, Maya chimed in. You know, we should listen to new ideas. One by one, people began to express their support, their voices rising in unison, creating a tidal wave that threatened to drown out Mr. Jacobs' attempts to assert power. The man with the suitcase smiled, the previous embarrassment washed away, replaced by a sense of belonging he'd longed for. You deserve this moment, Maya encouraged him quietly, her heart swelling with pride. When the final votes were counted, the results rang through the room like a bell, hearts pounding, excitement bubbling. The proposal was met with overwhelming support, and suddenly the room erupted into cheers. Maya looked over at the man. The awkwardness of his shoes had shifted into something entirely different, a token of determination, a symbol of resilience. In the chaos, Mr. Jacobs stood defeated, the grip of his authority slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. The tide had turned. He was now the outsider, challenged and stripped of his previous power. The exhilaration surged through everyone in the room, with Maya at the forefront celebrating the victory of the unexpected over the mundane. The once awkward man now stood confidently as a leader of innovation, inspiring everyone around him to embrace authenticity. As people gathered to offer their congratulations and ideas, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that this was a turning point, not just for the man, but for everyone in the office. In a world filled with pressure to fit in, that suitcase filled with hope and dreams had become a catalyst for change. And as Maya looked around, the joy echoed through her heart. The moment had finally come. The unwritten future was blossoming right before them, with every voice realizing its worth and every dream ready to take flight. And it all started with a laugh at a pair of shoes, a moment that transformed into a lesson in respect and resilience. In that office lobby, beneath the fluorescent lights, they had found something greater than ambition. They had discovered the power of unity and listened to the stories worth sharing. A loud thud shattered the usual hum of the office as a suitcase clattered to the floor. Maya's eyes darted toward the cause of the commotion, her brows knitting together. The man responsible stood there looking sheepish and awkward, his embarrassed gaze fixed on the polished tiles as if willing them to swallow him whole. But what truly caught Maya's attention were his shoes, a worn-out pair that looked like they belonged to a different era, ill-fitting and scuffed, carrying the weight of his insecurities. The laugh slipped out before she could think better of it, a light-hearted jab that was all too common among office workers trying to find comic relief in the mundane. The man looked up, and for a fleeting moment their eyes met. His expression faltered, the weight of her laughter visibly pressing down on him. The realization hit her, he was not just dressed poorly, he appeared utterly out of place. It was a moment that stirred something in her, a flicker of guilt mixed with the rush of her own ambition, but she pushed it aside. Today was a big day. There were bigger fish to fry, and she wasn't about to lose sight of her goals. The crowd in the lobby was bustling with anticipation. The annual company meeting was upon them, where announcements of promotions and accolades would be shared. Maya could already feel her heart racing, dreams of rising through the ranks flooding her mind. She looked back at the man, still standing by his suitcase like a lost puppy, and shook her head, making a mental note to ignore her fleeting compassion. Seconds felt like hours as Mr. Jacobs made his way to the podium, his presence commanding the room. He was impeccably dressed, a master of the corporate universe, and today he was ready to reveal the fruits of their labor awards for the hard work they'd all put in. Maya straightened her spine, flushing out all distractions. She needed to focus. "Welcome, everyone." Mr. Jacobs' voice held power and the crowd erupted in cheers, but Maya found herself stealing glances at the man near the suitcase. What was his story? Why was he here? The evening unfolded with applause and admiration as Mr. Jacobs detailed the achievements of the past year. Each award he handed out felt like a step up the ladder for Maya, but then the unexpected happened. The man took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Excuse me, mister," his voice trembled but carried a determination that seized everyone's attention, including Maya's. Mr. Jacobs asked, brow furrowing. The crowd ebbed, curiosity rising as whispers danced in the air. "I believe that suitcase is mine," he said, his chin lifting slightly. Maya's heart raced. The juxtaposition was striking. Here was a man with great willpower standing up in front of the entire office, while Mr. Jacobs towered over him with a dismissive air. The tiny voice inside her urged her to speak up, yet she hesitated, feeling the tension clutch at her throat. Mr. Jacobs sneered. The crowd gasped collectively, tension thickening as everyone braced themselves for the fallout. "I care," Maya shot back, surprising even herself with the force of her words. She stepped forward, feeling a sense of urgency flood through her. It was now or never. "The issue isn't just the suitcase," she continued, locking eyes with the man even as her heart raced. The crowd murmured in agreement, a subtle tidal wave of support beginning to wash over the room. For a fleeting moment, she sensed a shared understanding, something that transcended their individual ambitions. Mr. Jacobs' face twisted in irritation. "This is a business, not a charity," he trailed off, struggling to find the right words to belittle the man standing resolutely before him. "My name is Tom," the man interjected bravely, the trembling in his voice replaced with newfound confidence. "And I've been working hard on a proposal that could benefit this company greatly." Maya felt the expectation crackle in the air. The room held its breath as the man continued, his stance shifting from weary to determined. "I've logged hours of research and strategies to improve our outreach." Every word he spoke resonated deeply within her, echoing with truths she had always believed but never voiced. The community around them began to rally, whispers turning into supportive cheers. "Yes," they shouted, their voices growing louder with each syllable. Mr. Jacobs' expression darkened, suddenly realizing he was losing control of the situation. The wave of support was like a rising storm, threatening to drown out his authority. For every excited voice from the crowd, he struggled to maintain the grip he had over them. With every ounce of courage, Tom flung the suitcase open. Papers tumbled into view, designs, charts, proposals laid out like blueprints for the future. As the crowd leaned in, Maya could see hope reflected in Tom's eyes, ignited by the possibility of being heard. "I propose a complete rebranding," he explained, gesturing to the documents with fervor. "Our customer engagement has been stagnant." The murmurs grew insistent. Curious eyes scanned the documents, excitement bubbling to the surface as Tom's passion filled the room. He leaned into the moment, opening up about his ideas, his voice rising and falling with enthusiasm. And just like that, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Maya felt the passion radiating from him, an electricity that surged through the crowd, binding them together. Everyone was engaged now, listening intently to the man who had once stood alone, feeling like an outsider. Someone called out from the back, "This is brilliant." Maya's heart soared, the thrill of the unexpected overtaking her. Each voice filled with encouragement propelled Tom forward, creating a tidal wave of support against the previous tension. Maya looked at Mr. Jacobs, whose expression morphed from disbelief to agitation, the cracks in his facade widening. Jacobs' voice boomed, dropping the polite pretense as he stepped toward the front. "This is not how we operate," Maya interrupted, surprising even herself. "Is that what you were going to say?" The crowd stirred, fueled by her boldness. Together they roared in support, echoing their agreement. "Hear him out." In that moment, a switch flipped. The energy in the room escalated until it became palpable. Tom, buoyed by the atmosphere, spoke with an urgency that could touch everyone's hearts. He laid out his vision, passion lighting every word. "We have the opportunity here to shift our company's trajectory," he proclaimed, gesturing animatedly to the papers scattered around. Maya felt a rush of disbelief mingled with elation. Was this really happening? Tom paused, scanning the crowd. "Let's move forward together." With every word there was this relentless hope, the kind of belief that ignited dreams. The crowd felt it, and she did too. It was the beginning of something profound. Finally, Mr. Jacobs was left fumbling for words, a shadow of his former authority. All he had to grasp was fading away. He yelled, but even his voice felt hollow against the growing support, but the crowd wouldn't be deterred. Let him present. They had felt the spark of change, and any attempt to silence their enthusiasm crumbled under their collective voice. Maya watched in awe as Tom took the stage, shifting from the boy with the old shoes to a leader, commanding attention. The respect he had longed for was finally becoming reality. The anticipation surged through the room, the energy shifted from reluctance to enthusiasm, and in that pivotal moment everyone realized they were part of something bigger. Eyes were glued to Tom, but their hearts beat as one, urging them into their new future. When the votes came in for his proposal, excitement buzzed in the air, electric like summer lightning. Enthusiasm surged again, rippling as Tom's ideas resonated deeply with everyone present. Cheers erupted, carrying the sound throughout the building. The old fears faded, and for Maya, for everyone, a new dawn broke with the promise of change no longer defined by their past, but framed by the potential of their futures. Mr. Jacobs stood frozen, watching the crowd celebrate. It was as though he had been cast adrift, the force of the tide now against him. Maya moved closer to Tom, excitement bubbling over. "You did it," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with admiration. "Thanks," he muttered, still looking slightly bewildered. I never imagined this would happen. I just wanted a chance to be heard, he said, voice steadying as the realization sunk in. Let this be a lesson, Maya said, her eyes narrowing playfully. A smile spread across Tom's face, and as Maya glanced around at the cheering department, she couldn't help but feel a newfound appreciation for the man she had initially judged so harshly. The transformation before her was breathtaking, a reminder that everyone has value regardless of appearances. As Tom stood in that moment, surrounded by supportive colleagues and bright ideas, it wasn't just a victory for him. It was a win for everyone who had ever felt overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. Together, they forged a new narrative that change comes when courage meets unity. In that bustling office, beneath the warm glow of soft lights, something profound blossomed, ignited by the overlooked and the unassuming. And it all started with a laugh, a suitcase, and the undeniable truth that everyone has a story worth sharing and a voice that deserves to be heard. A loud thump echoed through the office lobby as a heavy suitcase hit the ground. It landed with a thud that turned heads. Maya glanced over, curiosity piqued, and then she saw him, an awkward man standing nearby, his face flushed pink with embarrassment, his eyes darting from the suitcase to the floor. But what truly caught her attention were his shoes, battered, scuffed, and wearing the unmistakable marks of neglect. A small laugh slipped from her lips before she could catch herself. She whispered to her coworker, a chuckle escaping her just as quickly as it came. The moment hung in the air, thick with tension, as the man glanced up, his expression shifting from surprise to discomfort. Maya felt a stab of guilt for laughing at him, but she quickly brushed it aside. She had bigger goals today, much bigger. Today was the day of the annual company meeting, the moment when dreams of promotions and accolades turned into cold, hard reality. The waiting crowd around the reception desk sizzled with excitement, the chatter echoing off the polished marble floors. Maya took a deep breath, the smell of fresh coffee mingling with the anticipation of what was to come. She spotted her boss, Mr. Jacobs, weaving his way through the crowd like a shark among minnows, confident, commanding, and utterly in control. Then she returned her gaze to the man with the suitcase. He looked lost in a sea of well-dressed professionals. What was he even doing here? Did he think he had a chance to impress anyone? It was puzzling. The program began, and Mr. Jacobs stepped up to the podium, the room falling silent as his booming voice cut through the chatter. Welcome, everyone. Today is a day to celebrate accomplishments and announce our new projects. His tone was electric, a captivating contrast to the man with the suitcase still lingering awkwardly at the edge of the room. Maya felt her heart beat faster at the prospect of her name being announced. She imagined herself standing at that podium, basking in the glow of recognition. She could almost taste the victory when suddenly the room buzzed again. "Excuse me, mister," the man's voice sliced through the atmosphere, brave yet trembling. Heads turned and Maya's breath caught in her throat. There was an undeniable weight in the air as Mr. Jacobs narrowed his eyes. He snapped, irritation creeping into his tone, cutting through the excitement of the gathering. The man stepped closer, determination pushing through the layers of his shyness. Maya's heart raced at the turn of events. The tension in the room rippled like a wave, amplifying the stakes. Did this man really think he could demand attention when everyone was focused on Mr. Jacobs? Instead of retreating, though, the man stood firm. "I have a plan that could improve our marketing strategy," he added, his voice trembling but folding into a sense of urgency. Mr. Jacobs scoffed, the corner of his mouth curling into a disdainful grin. "And you think you can just walk in here and take up our time?" Maya's pulse quickened. She felt an instinctual urge to defend him. There was something striking about this moment of realization that this wasn't just about a suitcase, but about the right to be heard, regardless of one's appearance. "That's not fair, Mr." Maya called out, surprising herself with the strength of her voice. The room shifted, eyes darting between the two of them. Surprised by her own boldness, Maya pressed on. "You can't judge someone's worth based on their shoes." The murmurs in the crowd suggested that others felt the same way. They shifted, unsure how to react. Would they side with her, with the boss? Maya continued, eyes fixed on the man. The tension was palpable, almost suffocating, as Mr. Jacobs' irritation swelled into a boiling storm. Yet a small voice broke through. Someone shouted from the back, emboldening the others. The crowd echoed their agreement, united against Jacobs' contempt. Yes, Maya felt a thrill run through her, the heat of solidarity fueling her courage. There was a growing energy and electricity in the air that promised change. The man stood taller now, perhaps emboldened by the support. "I know I may not look the part," he said, turning his eyes to the crowd, "but I've worked hard on this." Mr. Jacobs' face twisted with disbelief, but the murmurs of the crowd grew stronger. "Let him talk." This chorus of voices grew louder, drowning out Jacobs' authority. "Fine," he blurted out, clearly cornered. Tom hastily opened the suitcase and papers spilled out neatly arranged charts, prospects, ideas crafted with diligence and passion. The crowd leaned in, hoping to catch a glimpse of something worthwhile. "I believe our current approach has been outdated," he began, his voice steadying as he moved through the presentation. "We can enhance our outreach, focus on what customers want instead of just what we think they need. Look here," he pointed to a graph illustrating potential growth. The atmosphere changed, everyone enveloped in his enthusiasm. Intrigued faces studied each page, even Maya, who couldn't help but feel the excitement bubbling in her chest. The doubts of who he was seemed to fade into the background, replaced by this vision he was creating. There's an opportunity here to forge new paths for our brand, Tom continued, gaining momentum. Maya glanced at Mr. Jacobs, who now wore an expression of shock, his previous facade crumbling like dry clay. The entire room seemed to rally around Tom, and with every point he made, it became clear they were witnessing something remarkable, a breakthrough. Someone shouted, a spark of revolution igniting in the room. Maya felt a rush of adrenaline, the possibility that they could see real change unfolding right before their eyes. "We need to hear more," she exclaimed, her voice ringing out among the crowd. As enthusiasm filled the space, Tom continued. The momentum continued to gain speed until it became undeniable that change was on the horizon. Mr. Jacobs stepped forward, attempting to regain authority. This all seems rather foolish, but the crowd wouldn't have it. They were determined, their voices raising in a collective surge. They shouted, creating a sense of unity that swelled into a powerful wave. The anger that had fueled Jacob's authority was now met with a force challenging it directly. Maya repeated, her fervor matching the energy of the crowd. The tension broke as Tom held his ground, outlining every detail of his plan, his confidence building like a crescendo. "All I ask is for us to be brave enough to try something new." With each word, the crowd swayed, deeply engaged in his vision. The idea that someone wearing scuffed shoes could lay out plans for a corporate future seemed bizarre at first, but here, hanging in the air, was the truth he was articulating, and it resonated throughout the room. Mr. Jacobs looked increasingly flustered as Tom articulated his strategy. The room's energy shifted once again, and the tide had turned decisively. Finally, as the votes were cast and counted, the room erupted in applause when a clear majority expressed unwavering support for Tom's proposal. Laughter, tears, and celebration were soon mixed together, crafting an atmosphere filled with exhilaration and hope. Maya felt her heart flutter, the thrill of being part of something significant washing over her. Tom, who had once stood on the fringes, had brought everyone together through his moment of courage. "Maybe I was wrong about you," Maya said, stepping closer to him, her eyes sparkling. Tom's face lit up, disbelief molding into joy. "I can't believe this is happening." Together, they turned to look at Mr. Jacobs, who now stood isolated in the aftermath of the overwhelming tide of change. The room swirled with excitement, leaving him stranded in disbelief. The once formidable leader now appeared small and unsteady, the foundation of his authority shifting beneath him. The truth was undeniable. Ideas could come from anywhere, even from those who didn't fit the mold. And that night, as the celebration erupted around them, Maya felt a lightness in her spirit. Change was possible, and it was happening in ways even she couldn't fully anticipate. They had the power to challenge the status quo, to embrace differences, and to elevate every voice, even the ones hidden behind scuffed shoes. As Tom celebrated his newfound recognition, Maya realized that it was also a victory for everyone in the room, an invitation for every overlooked story to take center stage. In the end, it wasn't just about a suitcase or mismatched shoes. It became an anthem for respect, creativity, and the courage to stand tall in the face of adversity. And it all started with a laugh that would soon fade, replaced by hope and the promise of new beginnings. The office was abuzz with anticipation, but it all fell silent when the suitcase dropped. It landed hard on the polished floor, interrupting a conversation about promotions. Maya looked up, her eyes darting to the man standing next to it. His shoes, old and scuffed, caught her attention more than the suitcase itself. Unable to help herself, a laugh slipped out. It was a small, fleeting chuckle, but it hung in the air like a balloon filled with tension. The man, feeling the sting of her words, glanced up and caught her eye. The embarrassment washed over his face, a crimson flush spreading like wildfire. For a moment, Maya felt guilt prick at her conscience. After all, who was she to judge? But today was a big day for her. Today was the annual meeting where she hoped to secure a promotion she'd been eyeing for months. She quickly pushed aside any lingering thoughts about the man and his unfortunate footwear. The lobby buzzed with excitement, the smell of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air as she cast her gaze back to the crowd. Her boss, Mr. Jacobs, was already commanding attention at the front of the room, a theater of eager faces reflecting the glow of authority he radiated. Maya watched as he gestured animatedly, spinning tales of accomplishments and milestones like a seasoned performer. She felt her heart racing, the thrill of opportunity bubbling up inside her. She was ready. This was her moment to shine. As the chatter continued, the man with the beat-up shoes stood nervously by his suitcase, seemingly invisible to everyone but her. There was a hint of determination in his posture that intrigued her. Did he really believe he belonged here? Just as Mr. Jacobs was about to wrap up the introductions, the man stepped forward, his voice breaking the comfortable narrative in the room. "Excuse me, mister." The sound of his voice pierced through the atmosphere and all eyes turned to him. Maya felt her breath catch. This was a bold move. What was he thinking? Would this end in embarrassment for him? Mr. Jacobs stared at him, disbelief etched on his face. He replied, irritation creeping into his voice. I believe that suitcase belongs to me, the man said more confidently, stepping closer and raising his chin just a fraction. The tension in the air tightened like a coiled spring. Maya's heart raced. Did he really believe he could demand attention during this grand occasion? There was a murmur among the crowd, an undercurrent of curiosity flickering like candlelight. Mr. Jacobs shot back, a smirk curling his lips. I believe I have a plan that could benefit our company, the man continued, his voice steadying as he found his footing amidst the challenging atmosphere. Maya's instinct kicked in. That's not fair, mister, she called out, surprising herself with the strength of her words. The crowd began to murmur in agreement, a sense of solidarity rising like a tide. Someone shouted from the back, the momentum was shifting. Mr. Jacobs replied, frustration clawing at his facade. The man insisted, this is serious, I've worked hard on this proposal. Maya sensed the energy in the room swell with support. She watched as the man's resolve seemed to strengthen, even in the face of Mr. Jacobs' disdain. Someone called, their voice cutting through the stifled tension. Fine, Mr. Jacobs relented, clearly flustered. The man took a deep breath, his fingers trembling slightly as he unzipped the suitcase. Papers spilled out, some of them neatly organized, others haphazardly strewn about. Maya could see charts and graphs, a full presentation laid out like art waiting to be appreciated. Look here, he began, a spark igniting in his eyes. I believe our outreach strategy is outdated. His voice gained strength with every word, a crescendo building as the crowd leaned in. Maya felt a wave of excitement wash over her. There was passion behind his proposal, a vision that transcended worn-out shoes and nervousness. Mr. Jacobs' expression darkened as the crowd began to murmur positively. He could feel the tide turning. This wasn't just another presentation, this was a challenge to his authority, a disruption to the well-rehearsed script he had prepared. Jacobs snapped, attempting to regain his control. But now the crowd was on the man's side, rallying behind the underdog. They shouted, their spirits lifting like a chorus of inspiration. Tom, the man with the suitcase, took a step forward, undeterred by the looming figure of Mr. Jacobs. You've said you want innovation, right? This could be our chance. The energy in the room crackled. Maya watched as the faces around her lit up with enthusiasm. She felt it. This was not just about one idea or one man's proposal. This was about everyone finding their voice, courage rising in collective unison. Someone proposed. Yes, the crowd echoed, the air thick with excitement. Maya's heart surged. This wasn't just a chance for Tom, it was a chance for everyone who had ever felt dismissed or overlooked. Maya shouted, her voice ringing like a bell through the turbulent emotions of the crowd. For a moment, Mr. Jacobs stood paralyzed, his authority collapsing around him like a house of cards. The collective will of the people surged like a tidal wave, sweeping away any remnants of his control. Fine, he yelled, frustration evident as he gripped the podium tight. The room erupted into applause, voices thrumming with excitement. Someone yelled, and the name rang out like an anthem of support. Tom took a deep breath and began to explain further, breaking down his proposal into manageable sections. As he spoke, Maya saw the confidence radiating from him like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. He was no longer the nervous man with awkward shoes. He was a leader, inspiring hope and ambition around the room. Maya watched the crowd nodding, the excitement infectious. Tom was pulling them in, capturing their imaginations with every word. As the crowd rallied around him, Mr. Jacobs' anger festered, but it was clear he was losing ground. The applause grew louder, drowning out his attempts to override their support. He shouted, but he was quickly met with laughter and cheers, the very sound of his authority crumbling. Finally, it was time to vote. The moment was electrifying as hands shot up in favor of Tom's proposal, each one a rebellion against the tired norms of corporate culture. Maya felt her heart race. She was part of something monumental. The votes were counted, and the roar of approval sent shivers down Maya's spine. Tom's proposal was accepted overwhelmingly. The crowd erupted into cheers, celebrating the victory that had seemed so improbable moments before. In the midst of the jubilation, Maya could hardly contain her excitement. She rushed to Tom, her heart soaring. You did it. Tom's face lit up, disbelief dancing in his eyes. I can't believe this. His voice trailed off, replaced by tears of joy. Maya smiled, feeling a sense of resolution settle within her. It wasn't just about the promotion she had wanted. It was about the recognition of every voice that had ever been cast aside. As the crowd celebrated, Maya glanced over at Mr. Jacobs. He lingered at the back of the room, a defeated figure surrounded by the joy of the moment. What once felt like an imposing wall of authority now appeared fragile, the gulf between him and the workers widening daily. It's a new era, Maya thought, her heart brimming with possibility. And at that moment, the man who had once felt invisible, who had been undermined, dismissed, and laughed at, had emerged victorious. Tom, with his scuffed shoes, had challenged the status quo and reignited a spark that would forever change them. Maya took a deep breath, reflecting on how easily she had judged him based on his appearance. She felt a pang of remorse, but it transformed into a lesson, the understanding that everyone has a story worth telling and every voice deserves to be heard. The celebration continued, laughter mixing with excitement, and Maya found herself swept up in the moment. Together, they had defied odds, risen against the tide of apathy, and reminded themselves that courage could emerge from even the most unlikely places. In the end, it was a story of transformation, a tale spun from laughter at worn-out shoes and swayed by the call for change. And as voices intertwined in celebration, they all knew they were part of something extraordinary, a moment etched forever in the fabric of their lives. A loud thud echoed through the office lobby as a suitcase landed heavily on the polished floor. It was the kind of sound that made everyone turn their heads. Most people went on about their day, but Maya couldn't help but stare. There he was, an awkward man standing beside the suitcase, his face flushed, almost reminiscent of a deer caught in headlights. What really caught her attention were his shoes, old, scuffed, and somehow completely out of place. Maya suppressed a chuckle, the laughter bubbling up before she could think twice. She whispered to her colleague just loud enough for a few nearby to hear. The man glanced up, surprise flashing across his features before embarrassment took over. Unable to hold her gaze, he looked down at his feet, digging his hands deeper into his pockets. Maybe she shouldn't have laughed, but honestly, the sight of him made her feel better about her own fashion choices. Slipping into her designer heels felt like a win already. Why should she feel guilty? Today was important for her. It was the annual promotion meeting, and she had worked hard for this moment. As she stood next to the elevator, sipping her coffee, she noticed the man still standing by his suitcase, rocking back and forth as though he were waiting for a train that would never come. An odd mix of empathy and pity flooded her. What was he doing here? Did he even belong in this corporate world? The elevator doors opened, and she stepped inside, shaking off her moment of reflection. The tall glass buildings outside rushed by as the elevator took her to the 12th floor, her heart pounding stronger with each passing second. She focused on the meeting ahead, but that vague curiosity about the man lingered in the corner of her mind. When the door slid open, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The spacious room was filled with vibrant conversations, the sounds of excitement mingling with the aroma of fresh pastries and coffee. Maya spotted Mr. Jacobs, their boisterous boss, theatrically recapping the achievements from the past year. He was larger than life, dressed in an exquisitely tailored suit, and everyone listened to his every word, captivated and eagerly awaiting his announcements. Maya felt adrenaline slip through her, invigorating her like caffeine pumping through her veins. A rush of hope coursed through her. Today could be her day. All she needed was the right moment to shine. Then she glanced over and saw the man again. He was still standing by his suitcase, clearly out of place, as everyone else mingled in well-crafted attire. The contrast was striking. Here was a man filled with hope, waiting quietly while his shoes spoke of a different story, a story she didn't understand. As Mr. Jacobs continued his speech, the man finally caught Maya's eye once more. There was a hint of determination in his posture, as if he were summoning all his courage for an unexpected moment. Did he have something important to share? Just as Maya's curiosity began to swell, the unexpected happened. The man straightened up and stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Excuse me, mister," he called out, his voice shaking but resolute. The chatter faded to silence. Everyone turned to look at him, including Mr. Jacobs, who wore an incredulous expression. He replied, irritation lacing his tone. "I believe this suitcase is mine," the man stammered, stepping closer. The air grew heavy with tension. Maya felt her heart race. He was interrupting the boss of the company during a major meeting. Did he really think he could get away with this? Mr. Jacobs shot back, crossing his arms, eyebrows raised as if challenging the man's nerve. The man hesitated but then pressed on. "Because I believe I have a plan that could change how we reach our customers." Maya's instincts kicked in. She found herself shouting, feeling the weight of the moment crush down on her chest. The crowd shifted, whispers blooming as others began to murmur their support. The moment of solidarity sent ripples through the room, and she felt emboldened. Someone shouted from it. "Yeah," another voice chimed in, as if the energy of the room was undergoing a transformation. Mr. Jacobs shifted uncomfortably, clearly losing control. He barked, his authority met with defiance. Maya stepped forward. "No, it's about innovation." The man took another breath, emboldened by the unexpected support. "Look, I know I may not fit into the conventional mold," he admitted. The crowd was leaning in now, listening carefully. For the first time, Maya could sense a tangible shift in the atmosphere. Excitement crackled like static electricity against the walls, fueled by hope and determination. Someone shouted, their enthusiasm echoing through the room. "Fine," Mr. Jacobs conceded, leaving him with little choice. The man fumbled with the zipper, revealing neatly organized papers and colorful charts that spilled onto the table. Maya leaned closer, intrigued. The graphics were engaging and the data compelling. Even she could see the promise in his ideas. "I propose we adopt a new marketing strategy, one that resonates with younger audiences and meets their needs where they are," he began. His voice grew stronger, fueled by the crowd's energy. Each word resonated deeper, gaining weight as he articulated his vision. Maya could see the crowd swaying with interest, captivated by his passion and sense of purpose. As he showcased his ideas, even Mr. Jacobs' expression began to falter, though he tried to mask it with scorn. He scoffed, trying to reassert his dominance. The man challenged, his voice growing braver. "If we don't adapt, we'll lose relevance." Now the crowd was rallying behind him, the tide shifting entirely. Someone shouted again, and the chorus of support surged like a wave poised to break. In that heated moment, Maya felt the tension morphing into something beautiful, a community rising together, combating the previous norms that held them back. They were no longer just employees, they were voices united. Someone called from the back, "Yes." The chant spread through the room, energizing everyone. The energy soared as Maya raised her hand high. "Count me in." As the room echoed with excited cries, Mr. Jacobs stood frozen. The pulse of the crowd couldn't be ignored. They were interested in something new, something different. Breaking the norm of predictable meetings was exhilarating. Tom took a deep breath, feeling the support bolstering him as he displayed confidence he hadn't shown moments before. "Together we can make this happen." With hands up all around, the votes were being counted. Each hand raised was like a silent promise against the dull monotony of the corporate machine they'd lived within for so long. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, and hope began to take root in that once stifling room. Finally, the votes were tallied and the results were announced. Cheers erupted when Tom's proposal was accepted overwhelmingly, the chorus of voices celebrating not only an idea but a glimpse of a new culture emerging within the company. Maya felt a rush of joy as she clapped and cheered, feeling inspired. She had underestimated the power of unity, and she now realized that every voice mattered, even if it came from someone wearing shoes that weren't quite right. Tom stood beaming, disbelief and elation washing over him like a wave. "I can't believe this," he exclaimed, overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. Maya shouted back, tears of happiness welling up in her eyes. As the celebration swept through the room, Maya noticed Mr. Jacobs staring at Tom, his expression shifting from anger to something more complicated. It was a realization that the world was changing, and he might not be able to cling to his old ways much longer. Maybe this is just the beginning, Maya thought, excitement coursing through her. In that wild burst of happiness, she glanced at Tom's shoes again. They were still scuffed, still out of place. But now they told a story, one of determination, courage, and the undeniable truth that you didn't need to fit into a mold to make an impact. The applause continued, invigorating as laughter filled the air, accentuating the promise of what lay ahead. The man who had stood there so meekly just moments before was now a symbol of possibility. Maya took a breath and felt the weight of the transformations happening around her. This was not just about promotions or recognition. It was about respect, innovation, and breaking free from old molds. And as she stood in that vibrant room, amidst a tide of transformation, she felt proud, not just of herself, but of everyone around her. Together they had challenged norms, risen against expectations, and found strength in unity. In the end, it was a story of courage born from unexpected places, a reminder that everyone has a voice worth listening to, and that sometimes the most overlooked stories carry the heaviest truths. The laugh at the beginning became a lesson, and the journey they embarked on together would leave an indelible mark on all their lives. A loud thump echoed through the busy office lobby as a suitcase came crashing down onto the polished marble floor. The moment turned heads, eyes darting from conversations to the source of the noise. Maya, standing near the reception desk, felt the air shift around her. In the middle of all the bustling professionals, the man stood awkwardly by his suitcase, his face a mixture of embarrassment and determination. Maya couldn't help but notice his shoes. They were scuffed and worn, as if they had battled the world and lost. A quick laugh slipped from her lips, not out of cruelty, but genuine surprise. She whispered to a colleague, glancing sideways. The man looked up at her, his cheeks flushing a deep crimson. The laughter felt like a punch in the gut to him, and Maya instantly regretted it, but just as quickly she pushed that guilt aside. Today was too important for her to second-guess herself. The annual promotion meeting was just about to start, and she had a plan. As the elevator door slid open, she stepped inside, shaking off the strange feeling of empathy towards the man with the suitcase. She had bigger fish to fry. The tall buildings outside rushed past her, and she could already see Mr. Jacobs, their boss, commanding the center stage. The room hummed with excitement. Employees mingled, discussing projects and achievements. Fresh pastries and strong coffee filled the air, but Maya felt only the electric thrill of her upcoming opportunity. Mr. Jacobs was dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, his confident demeanor instantly drawing the crowd's attention. But through the thrumming buzz, Maya stole glances at that man. He had moved to the edge of the gathering, still clutching the suitcase like a lifeline. She should have forgotten about him. After all, who was he in the grand scheme of things? As Mr. Jacobs began to speak, Maya's focus returned to the stage. He recapped the company's victories, spinning tales of hard work and progress, and with every word Maya's heart raced. This could be her moment, but before she could get lost in her daydream, she noticed the man step forward, clearing his throat. "Excuse me, mister," his voice cut through the air, trembling but insistent. All heads turned, the chatter fading to silence. The tension in the room was palpable, as if everyone were holding their breath. Mr. Jacobs frowned, eyeing the man with a mix of annoyance and curiosity. He asked, dismissively, "I believe that suitcase belongs to me," the man said, sounding more certain than he looked. Maya felt a surge of energy shift in the room, an undercurrent of disbelief. Could this man really interrupt the boss during such an important meeting? Was he out of his mind, or did he genuinely think he had something worthwhile to say? "Mr. Jacob scoffed, crossing his arms, the arrogance of his authority hanging thick in the air. The man squared his shoulders, determination seeping into his voice. "Because I believe what's in that suitcase could change our strategy moving forward. I've spent weeks preparing." Maya's heart raced. She felt a strange urge to stand up for him. Yet at that moment, before she could voice her thoughts, another voice rang out from the crowd. As if ignited by that one call, more voices joined in support. Yes. Maya's heart fluttered wildly. The tide of support was shifting. She felt exhilaration and fear twist together. Would the man really be able to claim his ground amidst the powerful figure of Mr. Jacobs? The crowd buzzed more passionately, voicing their anticipation. Mr. Jacobs winced, trying desperately to regain control. He barked. Maya felt herself stepping forward. She insisted. Tom, the man with the suitcase, blinked in surprise at the unexpected backing. "I know I'm not what you expect, but this proposal could help us stand out," he said, taking a deep breath. The crowd leaned in, curiosity and hope bouncing off the walls. Each pair of eyes held onto Tom's words as he laid out the main points, his confidence building after every nod and murmured agreement. "Look," he said, "customers want authenticity. They want to know us, to feel connected." The energy in the room shifted, gaining momentum like a wave breaking free. As Tom continued with his proposal, Maya observed Mr. Jacobs scowl, his irritation growing. This was no ordinary encounter. The man was calling for change, calling out the status quo where it had long been accepted. Tom urged, his passion palpable. "We need to adapt or risk being left behind." He stepped back, his chest heaving with the weight of his words, sensing the shift in the room. A voice rang out, echoing Tom's call for change. Yes. The crowd responded, energized by the possibility unfolding before them. Maya could feel the adrenaline rushing through her veins. They were all ready to act, ready to seize change. This was the moment she didn't think they could have. Mr. Jacobs stood rigid, his authority cracking under the pressure of the crowd. He roared, but the rousing support drowned him out. They yelled again, their voices echoing and growing stronger. Tom looked around at the faces now cheering for him, and he swallowed hard, determination etching itself deeper into his features. With a flicker of hope, he scanned the crowd that had rallied behind him. "Together we can do this," Tom proclaimed, his voice full of renewed confidence. The votes came quickly, hands shooting up in favor of his proposal. Maya felt her heart race, a tidal wave building and crashing all around them, fueled by dreams and aspirations. Each hand that rose was a small rebellion against indifference. Finally, the results were announced, echoing through the charged atmosphere. Tom's proposal had garnered overwhelming support. The room erupted into applause, cheers bouncing off the walls like fireworks, filling the once stifled air with excitement. Maya felt exhilarated, overwhelmed by the excitement of being part of something new and big. She turned to Tom, who was still standing there, wide-eyed. "You did it," she exclaimed, a wave of admiration washing over her. "I can't believe it," Tom breathed, absorbing the moment as reality began to set in. His voice trailed off, caught between disbelief and joy. As the crowd surrounded him, celebrating this unexpected victory, Maya could see Mr. Jacobs looming at the back of the room, a dark shadow in the wake of the bright light engulfing them. His expression had twisted into one of rage and contempt, yet there was something deeper, reflected fear. Fear of change. Maya felt an internal push at that realization, a sudden understanding of her own journey in the middle of this chaos. She had spent so long measuring herself against the expectations of someone like Mr. Jacobs, and now she was witnessing a metamorphosis. Was it really possible for someone in a seemingly insignificant position to transform an environment that had been so rigid, so set in its ways? The celebration swirled around her as she looked back at Tom, who was now discussing the next steps with enthusiastic coworkers. These moments felt historic, a groundbreaking collision of aspirations and unyielding courage. But as the joy surged, a heavy weight settled in her stomach. What would Mr. Jacobs do next? The applause faded gradually, and Tom's smile transformed into a look of uncertainty. He turned to Maya, but just as he opened his mouth to speak, a voice broke through the jubilance. Mr. Jacobs' voice dripped with sarcasm as he stepped forward, his presence immediately casting a shadow over the celebration. Maya felt the room tense up in protest at the way he belittled the excitement. He continued, his cold eyes piercing through to Tom. "You may have held the crowd today, but rules are meant to maintain order. You think every idea gets a podium." Disbelief swept through the crowd, and for a moment it seemed as if the very air shifted, caught in a powerful gust. Tom opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. The determination that had burned brightly moments ago seemed to flicker. Maya jumped in again, her voice steady. This isn't just about today, the people want change. Jacobs thundered back, frustration boiling over. You'll learn, my friend. With that, he turned sharply on his heel, storming away and leaving a trail of awkward silence behind him. The exuberance that had once filled the room began to dissolve into whispers of uncertainty. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. As she watched Mr. Jacobs retreat, she couldn't shake the feeling that trouble lay on the horizon. His eyes had burned with an intensity that warned of a storm brewing, a storm that could bring repercussions far beyond today's meeting. As tension thickened in the room, she realized they were standing at a dramatic turning point. This was no longer just about a brief exchange. She could sense it, the dramatic fabric of their futures had started to unravel, exposing all their threads. So the question remained, what would happen next? Would they emerge stronger, or would fear silence the very ideas that had begun to stir? As the crowd began to disperse, Maya glanced at Tom. His face was a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. He had just challenged the norm, but the real battle was only beginning. Would he hold his ground against the looming threat of Mr. Jacobs? In that fraught moment, Maya understood they were on the precipice of change, and the next moves would determine everything. The stakes had never felt higher, and in the depths of her heart she wondered, as new alliances formed and courage rose, would they find the strength to push through, or would old barriers crush their dreams before they even had a chance to take flight?